It's about being proactive. It's about not waiting for opportunities. The difference between people who are successful and people who are not successful is successful people don't blame the circumstances. When something doesn't work, they're like, okay, what else can we do?
It's the Inspiration Place podcast with artist Miriam Schulman. Welcome to the Inspiration Place podcast, an art world insider podcast for artists by an artist, where each week we go behind the scenes to uncover the perspiration and inspiration behind the art. And now, your host, Miriam Schulman.
Well, hey there, it's Miriam Schulman here, your curator of inspiration. And you're listening to episode number 318. Welcome to the Inspiration Place. Today, we're talking about 7 habits of highly productive artists. If you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're struggling to stay focused, this episode is for you. You're not alone. Most artists struggle. Most people struggle, let's put it that way. Not because they aren't working hard enough, but because they focus on the wrong things. I know you work really hard. I do too. And I'm not perfect, by the way. What I'm sharing with you today is wisdom I need to hear myself, because so many of us, our brains are going to hijack us and send us down a rabbit hole of things we really don't need to be working on. So today I'm going to share with you productivity wisdom that's going to help you focus. Now, a lot of what I'm sharing with you today is based on a book I read a long time ago. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And this is the one book that really did send me down the rabbit hole of self-development. I remember there was an online class that I really wanted to take, and I didn't want to invest in it at the time. It was $1,000, which at that time for me felt like so much money. So I decided I was going to pass. And I was in this Facebook group with a lot of other entrepreneurs. And somebody says, well, really everything that's in this course is pretty much covered in this book, the 7 Habits book. So I was like, okay, I'll read the book. And I started reading it, and that's when I really fell in love with self-development, and in particular self-development books, like really falling in love with that knowledge and understanding that there are ways, there are methods that you can manage your mind, you can manage your time, you can be more productive to be more effective in the world. And I'm trying to think back how long ago it was that I did this. It may even have been before I had an online class. I want to say it was like maybe 13 years ago. So this is knowledge that I've been putting into place for a real long time. What I'm going to do today, though, is I am going to cover the 7 habits that are inside Covey's book, but show you how to apply it as an artpreneur, as a creative business person. Now, when I say creative business, just know that because this can apply to any creative business, doesn't matter if you're a painter, ceramicist, fiber artist, and once we're general about what kind of art you are, really, you can apply it to anything. So if you're an interior decorator, or if you're a graphic designer, or you're any kind of business that, not a painter, I'll tell you what to focus on so that you can leave here inspired and motivated, okay? All right, so let's first review what the 7 habits are. 1, be productive. 2, begin with the end in mind. 3, put first things first. 4, think win-win. 5, seek to understand. 6, synergize. 7, sharpen the saw. And yes, 7, sharpen the saw. Okay, so those are the 7 habits. And we're going to dive into each of them after these words.
The age-old question, can I make a living doing what I love, has troubled countless artists. And if you're looking for not just an answer, but actionable insights, the book Artpreneur by Miriam Schulman delves deep into this query. Here's what best-selling author Terry Trey Pisha had to say about Artpreneur.
must read for anyone who's ever said. But can I make a living doing that? We're told you can do what you love, or you can make a steady living, as if those are mutually exclusive choices. Schulman dispels the myth that you can be too creative or artistic to make a living from your work. This is an excellent read, sharp, funny, insightful, relatable, and eminently practical. It's no surprise that Schulman is a fine artist because she paints a very clear picture of what being a working artist or creative looks like, and not just that, but how it can be done. But this is not just a book for professional artists or those who want to be. It's a guide to seeing your work, yourself, and your customers in a new way so that you can create the career you want.
Every artist owes it to themselves to break free from these misconceived notions about art and finance. As Terry suggests,
Artpreneur is the lighthouse in the storm of doubts, illuminating a path for artists worldwide.
you can order the book from your local bookstore, library, or Amazon. You'll get the book bonuses no matter which format you choose. See all the bonuses over at artpreneurbook.com. To get the book bonuses, email your receipt to Miriam@theinspirationplace.net. And now, let's return to the Inspiration Place.
It's been a while since I read this book, so I really enjoyed getting a refresher on it. And if you've read the book in the past, I hope you enjoy it too. If you haven't read it, hopefully this will give you a little teaser, either to go read it or maybe just to get this Cliff Notes version that I'm sharing with you today. So we're starting with number 1, which is be proactive. Be proactive. So this is about recognizing that you have the power to not only choose your responses and your actions, but you have the power to choose your feelings. So when I talk a lot about this inside the book Artpreneur, I talk about how to manage your mind using cognitive behavior therapy, recognizing that there are circumstances in the world, things happen, we have thoughts about it, and those thoughts drive our feelings, and the feelings drive our actions. But along the way, we may not have the power to always change a circumstance. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's just an event in the world. But we can manage our thoughts about things. We're the only ones who think in our minds, which is a good thing. So it's about being proactive. It's about not waiting for opportunities. And this is one of the biggest differences between artists who are successful and artists who are less successful. The difference between people who are successful and people who are not successful is successful people don't blame the circumstances. When something doesn't work, they're like, okay, what else can we do? So there are circumstances, there are thoughts, there are feelings. Our feelings drive our actions create our results. And if we have the thought, nothing is working, that thought leads to despair, which leads us to not do anything. If you're convinced yourself that nothing's going to work, which leads to the action that nothing works. If you have the motto, be proactive, when something doesn't work, you can have the thought, I just haven't found what works yet, or I can't wait to figure this out, or perhaps I need to try something different now. And when you have that thought, because you believe that eventually what's going to happen is going to work, you keep taking action until you get the result that you want. Now, people who are not proactive, they think that they're waiting for perfect circumstances to happen, or they think the circumstances are more important, or they're waiting for the fish to jump in their boat. In Artpreneur, I call this Rapunzel-style marketing, which means you're waiting for your prince to come and rescue you. So the people who are the most successful, they're making things happen. They create their own opportunities. We don't wait for opportunities to happen. So let me give you a few ideas of how you can be proactive as a creative business owner. And I have a bunch of ideas. I'm going to list them out. The first idea is you could host your own art show. So this idea obviously is specific to artists. If you are not an artist, you can host your own fill in the blank, whatever that selling event is. For artists, this could be an open studio. This is definitely the easiest way to host something because you don't have to move your stuff around. It's right there. It's right where you create it. You can do this in your home. If you don't have a formal studio, that's fine. I've done it on my front porch. If your home is not appropriate for this, you can find a place to rent. You can find an empty storefront. You can negotiate with the landlord to use it. These are all different ways you can create your own opportunities. Number 2, network with other artists. You can co-create projects. You can co-create exhibitions. You can co-create workshops. Think of other artists not as your competition, but as your collaborators, because a rising tide is going to lift all boats. Throughout art history, successful artists have all had one thing in common, and that is they had artist friends. So we can see that with the abstract expressionists hanging out with each other. Andy Warhol hung out with Basquiat. And inside the Artist Incubator program, incubators meet together in their accountability pods. So they are networking with each other. One of the most powerful things that successful people do that unsuccessful people don't is they invest in their relationships. This is true of everyone in business. Invest in your relationships. And that is why I started those accountability pods. I wanted you to have the opportunity to network with other artists in a deeper, more meaningful and impactful way. Sure, we have a Facebook group. So many programs have Facebook groups. But an accountability pod is so much more impactful because you're meeting with the same people every week, face to face. Here's some more ideas for being proactive. Number 3, create and regularly update your website, your social media profiles that showcase your portfolio, your artist statement, your contact information. Those are all ways you can be proactive to create that professional presence that will help you sell more art, but don't be passive about it. Remember, having a beautiful website is like being that beautiful princess up in a tower. If nobody knows about it, it doesn't really help. You have to send that information out to people, whether it's for publicity, pitching for opportunities, asking people to buy what you have. You can teach workshops and classes. Building your email list is huge. Anyone who is following me for any length of time knows that because yes, building a social media is a useful part of what you do, but it's not as proactive as building your email list because when you build your email list, you're taking control of that relationship and you control who sees what it is that you're talking about. Remember, in social media, the algorithms decide if your followers even see it. On social media, only 1% will engage with you. But on email, the open rate is 24%. And the biggest difference is your subscribers decide whether or not they're going to open your email. On social media, the algorithms decide if your followers are even going to see it. Next idea. You can research and apply for art competitions, grants, residencies. Sometimes these can be a paid opportunity, and you can also make your own opportunity. Now, there's several ways you can do this to research opportunities. Websites like CAFE, which it's basically an acronym that stands for Call for Entry, so cafe.org, and also Art Opportunities Monthly. These are 2 websites that are very helpful for finding opportunities. So make sure you visit them regularly and see what kinds of opportunities that you can take advantage of. Another way that you can research opportunities is for Zap. I think it's Zapplication, and Zap is Z-A-P-P location, Zapplication. That is a great way to find quality artist opportunities. I'm not sure if that's limited to just the US, but that's a great way to find quality shows. Okay, so now here's your last idea for being proactive, and that is investing your time to submit for press and publicity. This gets more eyes on your art. So we have a freebie for you. So if you want to be a proactive artist and get a guide of artist opportunities to submit your art to pitch to the press, and we did take the time to research global opportunities, so it doesn't matter if you don't live in the US. You can get this if you go to schulmanart.com/media. So there is a huge difference between people who seek out opportunities and people who don't. The people who seek out those opportunities, they're willing to hear no. They're willing to hear no. So yes, you want to hear a yes, but you're not going to get any yeses if you're not willing to get a no along the way. So the more comfortable you can get with rejection and failure, the more success you're going to have. I just want to whet your appetite for a little bit about this. I've had lots of artists have success with getting publicity that have led to sales. Dawn Trimble, Elizabeth Mordensky, and Vicky Bess are 3 artists who have all had success getting publicity. Hey there, friend. So right before we get into part 2 of this interview, where I'm going to be sharing 5 AI tools you just don't want to miss out on, I also wanted to let you know that we have created a brand new way to deliver content to you. And yes, this is absolutely free. So what we're doing is every week, I'm going live on Amazon. Yeah, that's a thing. And if you want to check it out, you can head on over to schulmanart.com/livestreams. You can either set a notification to join me live on my next live stream, or you can catch up and binge any of the past content. Of course, I'm recommending a couple of things related to what I'm talking about that you can shop on Amazon. But the real point of this is to help educate you on different topics that concern you as an artist. So for example, we're talking about productivity tools. I'm sharing insights on my planning system. I also pull back the curtain on the exact tools I use to film my online art classes. And when I go to museums, I'm even sharing with you what I saw, and you'll get sneak peeks of all that because I'm uploading videos that I took directly at the museums and the galleries. So this is a great way for you to interact with me, get educated, and get some really inspiring content. I hope that you'll come find me over on Amazon. Again, that's schulmanart.com/livestreams. Okay, and now let's get back to the inspiration place. All right, so we just finished talking about being proactive. That was habit number 1. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. So what you want to do is define very clear goals. You always want to understand your long-term objective and have a clear vision for your life and your career. In fact, I would urge you to take it a step further and create a personal mission statement. Create a mission statement that really reflects your core values and your long-term goals. One of the things that I do with prospects inside the Artpreneur Bootcamp, and the next Artpreneur Bootcamp is actually coming up in September. You may want to get on to that. But during the bootcamp, we always create a manifesto, which really helps you create that long-term vision and mission statement. So once you created your mission statement, what you want to do is before planning your day, look at what your long-term goals are and your mission statement to make sure that what you're doing on a daily basis, what you're doing on a weekly basis, lines up with your ultimate long-term goal. Habit number 3, put first things first. You always want to prioritize the most important task. A lot of us spend too much time on things that feel important, but they really aren't. So you want to focus on things that are really important, not necessarily urgent. And we talked about this in a prior episode. This is the rocks first approach. If you were trying to fill a jar and you had sand and pebbles and rocks to put in, it would be a big mistake to fill the jar up first with sand because then you wouldn't have any room for your rocks. But if you put the rocks in first, you have lots of room then to fill the sand up in between the rocks. What you want to do is see your day as like this jar, with the rocks being your most important things that you have to do and sand or pebbles being less important. So not to fill your day focusing on less important things, focus on the rocks first. Say no to distractions, say no to unimportant tasks that don't contribute to your long-term goals. And at the beginning of every week, identify what your key tasks are and prioritize them in your schedule. I use a weekly planner to make sure that I've allocated time for my most important activities. I mentioned earlier, I use the planner pad. We will link that up for you in the show notes. Habit number 4, think win-win. So this is about seeking mutually beneficial solutions. It's about seeing your partners, your peers, seeing them as collaborators and making sure that you have the mindset that anytime you interact or negotiate, that everyone can benefit. It's not about he wins, she loses. So always looking to build positive relationships, focusing on cooperation rather than competition. And that's why I encourage you to meet with other artists on a regular basis because they are your allies. A rising tide lifts all boats. That's why I created the accountability pods inside the Artist Incubator, because these artists are really benefiting from having each other to hold on to. Habit number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. When selling your art, when selling anything, you want to listen more than you talk. This is easier said than done, but just so you know, telling is not selling. That's why in Artpreneur, chapter number 10 is called Listen to Understand. And that's really the chapter on selling. You always want to listen with empathy and truly understand your customer's perspectives before expressing your own view, making sure your communication is clear and considers the needs of others. But you can't do that if you're interrupting or worrying about what you need to say. Listen more than you speak. Here's your homework. Read or reread chapter 10 of the book Artpreneur and pay attention to the overcoming objections chart. Overcoming objections isn't about using the perfect script to get your customer to a yes no matter what. It's about stepping into compassion for your customer. Habit number 6, synergize. What you want to do is when you're working with others is combine the strengths of team members to achieve better outcomes than individuals alone and embrace diversity. Now, if you are a solopreneur, you may think this doesn't apply to you, but I really think you'll go further if you do hire help, even if it's just a business babysitter for a few hours a week to do some of the tasks that do not need to be done by you, that are a bit tedious. If you need help planning, there's some great planning tools out there. Trello is one. We use Asana, and they really help you to stay organized with all your tasks. And finally, habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. So the phrase sharpen the saw comes from the idea that if you're chopping down the tree, you need to take a break to sharpen the saw. If you don't think you have time to sharpen the saw, it's going to slow you down. Now, sharpening the saw is a metaphor for taking a break to refill your creative well to practice self-care. And so this is why it's important to renew yourself regularly. Take time for self-renewal in all 4 areas: physical, social, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Make sure you get enough sleep. Make sure your life is balanced and you're continually giving back to yourself. Schedule regular time for self-care, for learning, and for personal development. This is how you keep your edges sharp. Okay, so we're going to review all 7 of those habits. Number 1, be proactive. Number 2, begin with the end in mind. Number 3, put first things first. Number 4, think win-win. Number 5, seek first to understand. Number 6, synergize. Number 7, sharpen the saw. One of the habits we spent the most time on is habit number 1, be proactive. And we talked about how one of the best ways to do that is with getting press. Publicity is the formula for getting more visibility and sales for your artwork. Getting publicity is much easier than you think. Once you get over your fear of pitching, it can unlock all kinds of doors for you. My own art, my own story has been seen in many magazines and newspapers, from the New York Times to art journaling to local papers. And it's not only worked for me, but it's also worked for my clients inside the Artist Incubator, clients like Don Trimble. And it's also, publicity has worked for hundreds of years for artists like Rubens, who had his etchings made and distributed throughout Europe. Rubens was an artist in the Netherlands who knew that he wouldn't be able to get his art out. And by distributing these etchings, which are basically very expensive flyers and basically publicity, that was how he's able to get commissions from the wealthiest families across Europe. So the good news is I have a resource just for you. It's the top 20 blogs and magazines for artists. In other words, the top media for artists that you can pitch your stories to. They are looking for artists just like you. It's a curated list of the top 20 media outlets for artists. We're talking about the best blogs, the best print magazines. So if you want it, go to schulmanart.com/media to get your hands on it. All right, my friend, thank you so much for being with me here today. I'll see you the same time, same place next week. Until then, stay inspired. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Inspiration Place podcast. Connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/SchulmanArt, on Instagram @SchulmanArt, and of course on schulmanart.com.
The voice impersonations used in the commercials within this podcast are artistic representations meant to share testimonials, reviews, and endorsements of the book Artpreneur. Please note that these are not the actual voices of the individuals who provided the testimonials. However, all endorsements shared have been provided with permission for public use. We value authenticity and the trust of our listeners, and we ensure that all testimonials presented are genuine and used with consent.